Is Mickey Haller dead?
Did Lisa Trammell kill Bondurant?
What are Alex Grant's ties to this murder trial?
And will Mickey continue to get burned by his clients post-decision?
Find out as Red and Red Real Reviews goes over part 2 of season 2 of
Question: what kind of bear is best?
Do you have any history of mental illness in your family?
I have an uncle who does yoga.
It's a ridiculous question.
When they say 2% milk, I don't know what the other 98% is.
False. Black bear. That's debatable.
Randall, look at eye contact. You're gonna be cool, right?
Oh, baby, I'm as cool as the other side of the pillow. You feel me?
Ain't nothing wrong bringing the old me back. The mama know her body so trophy glass. She worked every.
Who is it you think you see?
I need a few more volunteers. Andy, will you be Iceland?
The bad guys from Mighty Ducks 2? Don't think so.
You have also heard the phrase, a Lannister always pays his debts.
I didn't actually sell my last car. I just forgot where I parked it.
Boy, have you lost your mind? Cause I'll help you find it. What you looking for? Ain't nobody gonna help you out there. Jesus can come through that door and he's not gonna help you.
I don't know who Al Gore is, and at this point I'm too afraid to ask.
You know nothing, Jon Snow. Allergies?
Cowardice and weak-willed men. And hazelnuts.
Who the hell are you? You know.
Stanley yelled at me today. That was one of the most frightening experiences of my life.
That idea is literally the greatest idea I have ever heard in my life.
You all know exactly who I am.
Act. Bears eat beets.
Woo, that's a brilliant plan, is it?
Bears beats Battlestar Galactica.
Bears do not.
Say my name.
That idea is terrible.
What is going on?
Okay, how about Japan?
The bad guys from Karate Kid 2? Even worse.
Now, for the last time, I'd like a side salad with balsamic.
No, you clearly don't know who you're talking to, so let me clue you in.
I guarantee you, Toby, I've had it a billion times before. It goes like this.
How many drinks of alcohol do you consume a week?
One.
That's it? One drink?
One shelf.
Sexual history?
Epic and private.
What? For the last time, she's not a waitress. You're telling me.
If you want her to leave, just tip her. Margarita, tequila soda, tequila rocks, tequila shot, hotel, sex, room service, shower sack, sewer. It's...
Do you exercise?
Yes, love making and woodworking.
Oh my God.
Daddy.
That's gross. I love it.
What for? We haven't even gotten bread yet.
Stop pooping. It's hard to believe we're even the same species. Baba booey.
Welcome into the inaugural episode, or pilot as they say in the industry, of Red and Red Real Reviews with Binge the Ginge and Nutmeg 2 Palmetto. And I hope everyone enjoyed some shots of some shows that you and I have discussed a lot over the last 15, 17 years. And now we're actually going to make it official and put our flaming ginger hair out to the public.
Wow. We're at just 15 to 17 years. Like, that just, wow. We're old. Right?
That's the old word. depending on which Molemeca course you start counting from.
Yeah. Yeah. But we're still, I mean, we're still red. We'll be red for a while. We won't be white, cotton balls.
We'll be red and we'll be red until we're white like Santa Claus.
Yeah, we'll be white and white real reviews.
Yeah. We'll have to change the whole rebranding.
Yeah.
Although I'll really once it starts going to Santa Claus, I'll really let it grow out and be a real Santa.
Oh wow, yeah. You can go with the Santa Claus thing. You could be like bad Santa.
I like it. So this show, Lincoln Lawyer, is a Netflix show produced by A&E Studios, and it I don't want to say it was a slow grow at the beginning, but it did kind of take a little bit of speed to pick up. And I didn't even realize, because when we were talking about what shows to do for the pilot and the kind of rough airing of when new seasons were going to come out, this was the first kind of notable one because the first season was very popular. And they only released the first half of the second season, and it ended on a crazy cliffhanger. And I'm like, wait, Where's the rest of it? This wasn't supposed to come out for another week. What's going on? Like I had like this hype up that the season 2 is already out, and then a significant jaw drop from Mickey again beating the head out back of his Suburban.
Yeah, that was that, you know, that's kind of the new norm with Netflix, is the way that they're doing things with the halves of the season. So the one thing I really do like about that, though, is I feel like I just watched the first half of Lincoln Lawyer. Like, I mean, that was what, a month, 2 months ago? I mean, who's counting? So it seems like it comes really fast. So like, I mean, sometimes you're waiting like literally 2 years for a show to come out. So this is, you know, unfortunately though, like it's, you know, you get the second half of a season a month or two later, and then you've devoured it all, and then you do have to wait a while. So I don't know. I think they're trying to, you know, ration out shows. They don't want people to just devour them or binge them. I don't really like using my own word, but yeah, I mean, at least it's not like Amazon where they really ration it out. They go back to the old school of like, okay, we'll give you 1 episode a week, maybe 2 if you're lucky. Like that's torture to me. Going back to how we grew up, like, which is, I mean, it shouldn't be that bad because of how we grew up. But ever since, you know, Netflix was introduced, like, how do we go back from getting all the episodes in a season at once?
And it's weird how the streaming partners are, well, not partners, giants, I guess. I don't want to say giants, but I guess they're all giants at this point. It's weird how they're like experimenting with this, where it was at the outset when this became a thing, it was drop all the episodes at once. It was the Netflix strategy, and then as all these other companies start making their own platforms, it's 1 episode a week, or it's a 10 episode season, but 5 drop here and 5 drop another, you know, and some of them still go, here's all the episodes in one shot.
Right. It's weird how it's just different from show to show. But I mean, I guess if, you know, if we're going to rank them, you know, I'd prefer to have the whole season because I'm, you know, a glutton. But you know, I guess second best is that half season format, just because you don't feel like you're waiting as long. So I actually don't mind that for Lincoln Lawyer. And, you know, especially coming off of a show that the first season, like I just kind of started watching it on a whim. I didn't expect that I would really like it. You know, I was just kind of like, oh, you know, it looks like people are watching this. Let me check it out. And I was pleasantly surprised.
Yeah. And our first topic, of course, is cliffhangers, and it's hard enough to get to a cliffhanger at the end of a season, having to wait for the next season. So then to basically do that twice per season.
Yeah. Yeah, it's kind of, well, I guess you could compare it to like a mid-season finale kind of thing, right? Because shows still do that. So I guess that's the closest thing. I mean, I don't know what you thought. What? Oh, Yellowstone.
Yellowstone does that.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was thinking of what shows. What show was I think when I was watching 1923, they, you know, said next on the mid-season finale, you know. But I don't know, getting back to cliffhangers, when the first season, I mean, the first half of this second season of Lincoln Lawyer ended, did you actually think for a second that they would kill off Mickey, considering he's the Lincoln Lawyer? Like, I think we all kind of knew they're not going to kill off a main character, right?
Yeah. They certainly made a convincing case, though. They did bloody him up quite a bit.
Yeah, so it's like, I think we all knew that he was going to survive in some capacity. Like, he wasn't going to die, but it's just how badly off would he be beaten is kind of the question that we were left with.
What was your best guess of who did it before they started to piece apart how it came to be? What was your like first gut instinct of who sent that team out?
On like thinking of like how I started off episode 6, who did I think would have done it by then?
Yeah.
I mean, I didn't totally exclude Lisa from doing it. I don't know. I have like a weird relationship with what I thought of Lisa, throughout this season. At first when she was introduced, when Maggie and Mickey were having a meal and she kind of was introduced, I was like, oh, like, since Maggie's not giving him the time of day, like maybe this is a chick who is going to give him the time of day. And I kind of like, I was like, oh, she owns a restaurant. Cool. But I don't know. Then like when they did actually hook up, I was like, I don't know. Just I started to get annoyed by her, and
A little bit.
yeah, right. And then when she like hired him as her lawyer, it just I don't know. I started to not really like her, and I'm not sure why. So I especially with Lorna saying like, oh, I don't trust her, like there's something off about her. I really like Lorna. So I was kind of like, okay, Lorna's my girl. Like she's not going to steer me wrong. So I kind of had in the back of my mind like, okay, we still need like a smoking gun. Well, not literally, but we still need proof that Lisa didn't do it, because she very well could have done it and just be kind of leading Mickey on and making him look like an idiot.
It's actually funny to use that comparison or that synonym, I guess, because it took them forever to find the murder weapon.
Yeah. Well, it wasn't, pun intended or anything. I didn't mean to, but
yeah.
But yeah, did you like, who did you think? I mean, I don't know that I suspected anyone else besides Lisa that could have done it. Who did you think?
I definitely didn't let my brain go too far into hyperdrive, because I had a hard time breaking apart like who else it could have been besides somebody from the Alex Grant camp. Especially after the preliminary hearing was in the first half of season 2, right? I think.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of all that. It's tough because there's just so many players, You have Alex Grant, you have Walter Kim, you have the FBI guy Vasquez, whatever. I just feel like there's so many different people that were put on the stand, and that, it's Henry, the podcast guy. Yeah. So it's just like trying to keep all the names straight for me. That was tough. And to be like, okay, wait, this person is in cahoots with this person who's in cahoots with that person, or this person paid this person off. Wait, what? Like just trying to keep the whole communication straight of who's who and who did what.
It's almost like trying to figure out the chain of command in Game of Thrones.
Yeah, or the names in at least the names are so confusing in Game of Thrones, but yeah. So keeping all of that straight, but yeah, I did really I love how Lincoln Lawyer does those little like after they reveal something, they kind of show how it all came together, or how they arrived at that conclusion, or when they're saying what they're going to do before it happens, like, so here's what we're going to do. We're going to talk to this person who, I love how they lay it all out like that. Like, Mickey with Lorna, or with Cisco, they're going to have him do something. Like, I love how they do that in this show. That's just like part of the magic of the show for me.
He just gives the nod to Cisco on it. Runs off.
Well, random note about Cisco that I wrote down. I screenshot when Cisco was on the stand, because I had no idea. I don't know if it's ever been revealed in the first season or the first half of the second season, but I had no idea that Cisco had the last name of my family. It's Wojciechowski, which is ridiculous to spell. It's like Wojciechowski, like that.
3-to-1 constant to vowel ratio.
Well, apparently I looked it up, and like 1 in 83,000 people in the world have that last name. So like when they put him on the stand and it said, isn't his name Dennis or something?
Yeah.
It's like very normal. I sure enough, I look on IMDb and it says Dennis Cisco Wichahowski, and I'm like, holy shit! Like that would have been my mom's maiden name, but her father went into radio and he changed his name to Henry, his last name, because he thought it would be so complicated, because he was like made fun of in school for his name being so long. And so I like screenshot it, and I was like going to send it to my family to be like, oh my God, Wichahowski, like in a show. That's so random.
Ironically enough, that could be a funny 1-to-1 to a topic that we'll get into later.
Cool.
If you know what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
But the cliffhanger, as they unveiled this, it didn't make sense to me. Ray kind of has just been kind of like this useful idiot in the show. Like, she's not really a main character, but she's kind of like this presence that hangs over the main characters.
Well,
for her to be the one to get the bribe from, I don't think it was Henry direct. I think it was Henry's investor. But for that all to get tied back to Ray taking advantage of Izzy, then Izzy realizing that Mickey was right the whole time about her. It all, that, like you said, when things all kind of make sense and go together, this really kind of wound up.
Actually, when I heard the name Ray, I was like, who the hell is that? I was trying to rack my brain, because doesn't Izzy take her into the office one time and she meets Mickey, and Mickey's like, don't screw her over. And that was the kind of the one time she was on screen, right? I mean, that was kind of a little bit of a cop out. You've seen certain shows where the character that committed the murder is like somebody who hasn't even been talked about, like a very, very side character, and you're like, what the hell? Like, that feels like I feel cheated, because that's a very minor character and you're saying they did it all of a sudden.
Although to that point, I didn't so much mind it being used as such in this context, because she would have been a very useless side character without this connection.
Yeah, I think that it seemed to me that was done on purpose for, Ray to be connected with Henry, and Ray also being connected to Izzy, because Izzy was the one that found Mickey when he was beaten. And that kind of, that scene in the hospital when Maggie is in there and she says, oh, hey, Izzy's been here all night. She was the one who found you. That kind of strengthens the friendship and the support with Izzy and Mickey. I think throughout the rest of the second half of this season.
Yeah. And to that point, there have been points throughout the 2 seasons where they do that. I'm gonna do the same thing that you did earlier. Where they have done that, where they find something to strengthen Mickey and Lorna, or Lorna and Cisco, or Mickey and Izzy, or Izzy and Lorna. Although not so much yet with Mickey and Cisco, but maybe that's so kind of by design, because Cisco's more like an operator, less of an emotional character.
Could be.
But yeah, that they do. You're right in that context with this situation, and I do kind of think that that's been used before.
Yeah, it's a little bit of irony, because Mickey was attacked, and Ray was kind of the reason that Mickey was attacked, and Izzy's linked to that because of Ray. So it's it's all this person is connected to this person, who it wouldn't have happened because unless there was this person. So yeah, I definitely think that was by design, that whole thing.
Well, speaking of by design, or I don't want to say irony, but something that left just about as sour taste in your mouth as irony typically can. You brought up earlier when Mickey first met Lisa, and it was kind of like this moment where Mickey wasn't getting where he wanted to go, where he wanted to be as far as getting his family back together.
Mm-hmm.
And Lisa also presents herself as someone who's very interested in Mickey, and romance takes off. Post his stay in the hospital, he's trying to get rid of the case. Maggie and Haley are at the house all the time. They're taking care of him, being very supportive, having family dinners together, and Mickey and Maggie's romance kind of rekindles.
Mm-hmm.
And you're thinking, and you have this moment like, they're back, it worked. And they have an intimate night. They're like, yes, we still love each other. This is amazing. This is what we both want. And then Maggie drops this bombshell on Mickey that she's taking head of major crimes down in San Diego, and it's good that didn't wind up being a bitter moment, because she said, hey, I'll commute back and forth. Haley can stay in school up here. But it also kind of gave this like interesting early note to the rest of the season, because you have this brutal cliffhanger where Mickey's beaten half to death and gets back. He's healthy, he's motivated, he's ready to get back to trial. All of a sudden Maggie's back in his life, everything feels good, and then so it almost kind of felt like bump, and we're back down.
It's like things are too good to be true. Like I literally wrote like, just kidding. It's like they gave us, and literally that was when they reunited, that was literally the last like 10 minutes of the episode. And then, so they got them back together, and they, took the wind out of the sails within 10 minutes. Like, that was defeating. It's like they gave us a taste of it, and then they took it away. Like, just as quick as it has rekindled, it was just like, never mind.
Yeah.
It was kind of cruel.
I know.
Because, I mean, I was rooting for them, but everyone's rooting for them. So that was, it was, of course, they show them playing Monopoly in the hospital, and then they show them at home, and then they just, they show the family functioning smoothly and everyone being happy, and then they just take it away. And I mean, it felt a little bit like Maggie was just kind of running away. Like, I get it, they have a complicated history and all that, but I don't know, it just felt like she was kind of running away. And like, they do have a certain connection that may or may not be like a little bit unhealthy, a sort of a dependency or something. I don't want to say toxic, but we wouldn't root for them if they were toxic, I feel like. Right. So
I think she almost convinces herself that there's something toxic about
yes.
Or
I
like,
think she says toxic, doesn't she? She might say toxic.
She says something, or at least implies it, that she's afraid that when things are going well between her and Mickey, that it just means that eventually it's going to fall apart.
Yeah.
So she's almost like protecting herself from it falling apart again, and just continuously getting heartbroken. But it's weird because they're not getting heartbroken because they're hurting each other. They're getting heartbroken because they're both cutthroat attorneys.
Yeah.
I mean, to me, like, there are worse things to be cutthroat about rather than, caring about your job. I mean, sometimes you have situations with one of the witnesses in season 1, I forget which one, where for Mickey to achieve something in his case, it meant her case, Maggie's case, took a significant death blow. And like, so like stuff like that. But in general, in general, how many cases are going to intermingle with that?
Right. Like, it just seemed to me like she couldn't find a job in the prosecutor's office in like a nearby town. Like, she has to go that far away, or like, this is crazy, but like, couldn't she become a defense lawyer so that there's no conflict? Like, if that's the one thing that's like preventing them from being together, like, is their occupation, like, you would think there's some way around that if they really feel that like they love each other and want to make it work for their daughter. Like you would think that there's something they can do, but I don't know. It just seems like a little bit of a cop out to be like, okay, bye, I'm moving to San Diego.
I will say though, and you brought up you want to root for them.
Yeah.
I will say them not being together makes you continue to want to root for them because they didn't leave it off bitter.
Yes.
You know that somewhere that door's not completely closed.
Well, also the problem with them not being together is that leaves room for Lisa. And I almost wanted to scream at the TV, like, when she'd be like, put her hand on his or something. I'm like, no, Lisa, you will not. Like, it would make me angry,
I also did that from the standpoint
right?
of like, this is gonna screw the case.
Yeah, well, that too, but it's like you just want to shake him sometimes. You're like, no, like, don't, like, she'd be like, oh, I made some food for you. It's like, no.
Yeah. Oh, this weasel.
Yeah, don't make food for him. Like, you're weaseling your way in. I don't like it.
Well, the case obviously is the big story in each season. And this one had a weird, I don't want to always use the word vibe. That had a weird like essence to it. Where the Trevor Elliott case was more like, here's all this evidence stacked up, and Mickey's got to strike each piece of it down the list, boom, 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 to break it down enough where Trevor Elliott's not going to look like this insanely guilty murderer. Whereas in Lisa's case, it had this sense of setup almost from the get-go. Like something here didn't make sense.
The math isn't mathing.
Yeah.
The whole time, right?
And
yeah.
And it almost felt like this one shouldn't have been as hard to prove. So I don't know whether like the case, you didn't necessarily feel as invested in the case. You were kind of paying attention to all the moving parts.
Yeah, there was a lot of moving parts and also a lot of things that came up, like evidence that came up or people who came up. I'm thinking specifically of Jeff. It just, all of that stuff was very like convenient, like, and not necessarily like, I'm not speaking to like the show, like them introducing it that way. It's just like it, to me as an audience, it made Lisa look a certain way, or, just the whole thing with like Henry and then Jeff, just when Mickey would confront Lisa, like she was just like, oh, like, why would you think that? Oh my God, I would never do that. Like, it was very convenient. Like, oh, Jeff just turns up and is like, oh, I want to talk to you. Like, I don't know. Just, it was very convenient the way that things turned out.
Yeah. The case resumes, of course, in the second half of season 2 with this very ominous gift, for lack of a better word, that Mickey gets of this FBI target letter left. And it winds up being that nobody can link this thing back to who left it. I mean, I think it's safe to assume it was probably Vasquez. But I don't think they ever actually resolved who left the letter there.
No, I think it's kind of implied that Vasquez left it. Like, he doesn't come out and say it, but I think it's definitely kind of implied.
Yeah. But it winds up being a good case to Mickey's defense. And the courtroom demeanor between him and Andrew Freeman, Andy.
Yeah.
I think they're doing a great job of making her be his real true antagonist. And to the point where, like, I don't want, like, let's say this show goes on for several seasons. I don't want to see her in every season. I want to see her like once every 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Or like a big case that like they have this like Optimus Prime Megatron thing, like where they're these two titans that you don't see them all the time. So when they do go head to head, it's more of a treat.
Right. But I think, they're different in a lot of ways, but they're the same in a lot of ways. And it's almost like they have like a mutual understanding of each other and how they operate. So the dynamics between them are interesting. I liked watching that.
I think her acting job has been superb, but her character comes off as so petty to me. Just in her courtroom demeanor, her general dialogue with Mickey, it's some things I get it. You're both super intense people in your profession, so I get that. That's fine. But something about that just kind of like, I don't like this woman.
Yeah, she's a little stuck up. It is weird too. Like, I mean, I know like Haley refers to her as like Andy, you know, like as if she knows her, but they don't really refer to Maggie a lot. You know what I mean? In talking about Andrea or Andy. They
went away.
Yes, it was a thing in the first half of that season, but I feel like this half, like don't even mention that she's supposed to be like Maggie's best friend, right? Like you don't really get a lot of that connection in the second half.
Yeah, they introduced this little tidbit of they're hanging out at each other's house all the time, they have a dinner together, blah blah blah.
And then dropped it.
Yep. and now she's just Mickey's antagonist.
Right. Like, wouldn't, you know, if she's she's your ex-wife's best friend, wouldn't like you have had years of like history with her, like as like spending time with her, you know? That's what I didn't understand is like, yes, there was the courtroom face off with them, but there wasn't like a personal face off. Like they should know each other decently well, I would say. Just being, you know, knowing people, knowing his ex-wife's best friend, I would think, but we don't get that. You know, very odd.
Speaking of their face-offs, the cadence Mickey has in the courtroom, he did this a little bit in season 1 in the Trevor Elliott case. He did this a lot in this season with Lisa Trammell's case. There's so many moments that give me My Cousin Vinny moments. Make me feel like I'm watching My Cousin Vinny, because he just like bing 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 shuts down. I'm done with this guy. I don't have any more room for this guy, you know? Like he has this like demeanor where he just goes into each witness and he just goes bing bing bing, yep, you're done.
Yeah, it's a little bit like he's the Latino Cousin Vinny, you know?
I do like that. And as far as I don't want to go necessarily too much into the granular stuff, but I mean, what pieces of evidence do you think were the biggest turning points over the course of the case? We've got the hammer that comes up out of nowhere. We've got the GoPro video that's all zoomed in to make it look like Lisa's the bad guy, and then they that was Walter Kim's picture rather, and then they show the GoPro camera, and it's more like Bondurant's trying to get her out of there. You've got the tapes from Henry's podcast that have her all emotional, and then he asks her like, how many takes did you do? What did he tell you? Oh, be more emotional, blah 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 blah, that sort of thing. You've got the Renee, it's his Facebook post. He's talking up Lisa's reputation as the restaurant owner, and then they show the Facebook post where it's like, and to me, like that one, I'm like, you tell me people don't post petty stuff on Facebook? Welcome to 2023.
I know.
So like, what all these, we don't have to go into each one of them.
Yeah,
to be a little granular, but which ones did you think were like the biggest turning points of the case?
It seemed like for a while there, each piece of evidence was kind of damning, you know, and then it was up to Mickey to kind of turn it around. Like, you know, he's kind of having to fight back. So yeah, that was interesting with, one thing I found especially interesting is the conversation about the hammer and, that doctor who came in and used Lorna as, you know, part of her demo. And
she was in season 1, right?
The doctor?
Yeah. She was in
I don't know, maybe.
Elliott case. I kind of recognized her.
Was she the expert? She give the expert testimonial in the first season?
I think so, because I recognized her.
Oh, okay. I didn't recognize that. but I thought that whole scene was very interesting. I mean, first of all, that she picked Lorna to do that. And then the fact that, so they're saying, oh, so, you're saying at this height, this woman could not have hit the top of this guy's head. And then, Andrea brought up the point of, oh, but, what if he were looking at the ceiling or looking at something? Like, surely the way he tilts his head back, tiny little woman would be able to hit him on the top of the head, right? Like that whole, and the doctor said, well, I mean, nobody knows because nobody was there. That whole exchange was very interesting.
And I found it so weird that Mickey didn't come back and challenge that right away. Like, for the most part, the writing in the show is very sound, but that felt like an empty hole that they could have pushed a little bit more, because it's like, well, sure. I mean, if we're just gonna throw out hypotheticals, we could throw a billion hypotheticals,
right,
to make this make sense,
right.
Well, I was surprised that didn't get any pushback. They're just going to accept the fact she's going to walk up, crack the mannequin's skull back, and be like, oh, look, I can hit it in the back of the head now.
Yeah. I mean, I thought that was really random to be like, oh, like, what if he was looking up at the ceiling? Like, okay, what if he was wearing a blue shirt? You know what I mean? It's just like, that didn't really seem like a plausible thing to me, or like, it just was very randomized, her as a prosecutor throwing that out. Like, if that's the one thing she's going to throw out, yeah, why not throw out a million other possibilities?
What other tidbits do you have from the trial before we get into what I think was the big turning point of the trial? Or maybe not turning point, but climax.
I mean, I just wanted to, I wrote a note of when they were setting up Grant to serve him the subpoena. I thought that was awesome. With Lorna and Izzy, the art, Tinto or whatever. They're like, oh, he likes this artist. That was great. I love that. And then Cisco's interaction with, when he was trying to confirm the validity of the FBI letter, he had that contact, the lady on the scooter that he wanted to give. She asked for the backstage passes to Def Leppard. Like that whole interaction, like that was great. I was dying.
Let me see the tickets. Let me see the confirmation.
Yeah. So when he was like, okay, pour some sugar on me. And she's like, don't ever say that again.
Noted.
Great.
Yeah. Cisco's, I mean, obviously they're going to have a role of an investigator in there, but I like that Cisco, the way he portrays that role is just kind of a straight operator, get the job done, cut and dry, no emotion, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And I'm glad, just a side note, that the first half of the season, they delved into his whole like motorcycle gang history. And I don't know, I just kind of got bored by that. So I'm glad like that was kind of like finished and tied up, They didn't really talk about that the second half of this season. I'm glad that storyline was, tied up in a pretty bow. So we don't have to hear about it anymore.
Yeah, look at a fluff piece which I get shows do, but like Izzy's studio drama was a fluff piece, but it felt like it was a fluff story. It didn't feel like it was taking over the show at any point.
And what do you think about involving Mickey's mom in this season? Because I kind of feel like that was like didn't really need to be there.
It didn't add anything.
Exactly. It didn't add any value for me.
And especially similar to things we already talked about, where they just kind of disappear. The Ray thing kind of disappears, and Maggie kind of disappears, and Maggie and Andy's relationship kind of disappears. His mother just disappears. She just goes off to Calgary to chase her acting dream or whatever. And it's like, okay, so it was just here to add some angst, some anxiety to Mickey's interpersonal character, or how he's made. And now she's gone.
And then it was to make us read Spanish subtitles.
Yeah.
I didn't see the purpose in that, and that I wanted to ask you if you saw the same.
Yeah, I mean, I don't so much mind that it was there, but as far as looking at the show, the season as a whole, it really didn't add anything. So
It didn't
I
add
don't know why
anything.
they
It
did it.
didn't further it along. I agree.
And cutting out on the court for lunch and going back for his birthday party or his special Thursday or whatever they called it. Like not even that. They didn't. There's no like rush. Oh, we gotta get back to the courthouse. It was like, oh, we're back to the courthouse in time. Perfect.
Right.
Like there wasn't even any drama, extra added drama from that little interaction.
Yeah.
So yeah, I didn't necessarily mind it, but it definitely didn't. It didn't add anything. To me, the big climax of the trial was, of course, Alex Grant taking the stand. And the whole time, especially as the rest of the show went on, and legal starts going into, you can get disbarred for this, and Andy starts shouting, oh, he did this on purpose, blah blah blah, and Mickey's like, oh, we'll prove it. Well, that's like that sort of thing. Like I definitely got a little bit anxious because I was like, oh, well, yeah, that actually does seem plausible. He could be disbarred, blah 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 blah.
Oh yeah.
But like that one, I liked how that went along as far as they uncovered Bondurant's debt that he owed, the FBI letter that Bondurant wrote threatening Alex Grant. It's funny you brought up this story about your family story about changing the name.
Yes.
And Alex Grant's on the stand saying, yeah, he's got this Armenian name and he changed his name to Grant to avoid xenophobia or mispronunciation or whatever the case may be. And then they go into the father's criminal history, then the uncle's criminal history. The uncle's hiding in a bakery and he's knocking for the baker, and he's like keeps like needling. And all of a sudden Alex Grant freaks out. He rips the thing. It's like, oh, well, on advice of my counsel, blah blah blah. I exercise the Fifth Amendment, blah blah blah. And that was like that kind of felt like it had this building intensity to the point where it blew up. It's like, oh, well, now where the hell is this case going?
Yes. Yeah, because then when it kind of, I don't know what made him plead the fifth. Was it when Mickey asked him, like, are you involved in criminal activity, like, with your father or your uncle or with this organization? I don't know if that was the question, but like when he got to that last question, that was that was definitely leading up to a big, when he was asking all the questions to Alex Grant, that was a lead up to something big.
Yeah. And it did it. It's funny because we knew it was going to happen. We knew that was his goal.
Right.
And if they were obviously keeping it off the record, we knew that was his goal. But even though we knew it was coming, it still felt rewarding to watch. It didn't feel like, he pleads the fifth. Of course he's going to plead the fifth. We knew he was going to plead the fifth.
Right. Well,
that was Mickey's plan.
That was one of those. That was one of those step-by-step things where he's talking to Lorna and he's like, well, do you think he's going to plead the fifth? Oh, well, they're talking to each other about the possibilities. I love how they do like the step-by-step of, okay, here's what's going to go down, or here's, what we're going to do. So that whole, wasn't really a montage, but how it was cut together.
And I always think it's interesting, not just in shows, but just legality situations in general. When the judge strikes Grant's testimony from the record after that, it says, jurors, you will not take this into your account, your deliberations, blah 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 blah. But it always is amusing. Well, musing is not the right word, but for lack of a better word, it's always amusing to me. It's like, how do you erase something like that out of your memory?
I know. How do you just tell the jury to, forget what you've been told?
Forget this damning, ominous presence that just happened in front of your eyes.
Like, let's rewind time and just forget that this all took place. Like that, I agree that's hard to do. You can't possibly like erase what you already have in your head, what you've already thought.
But to Mickey's credit, he did have a backup plan because Cisco took the stand after that, showed this camera that nobody knew about in this old building across the street, and they show the truck of one of Alex Grant's side businesses parked in front of the garage at the time of the murder. So there was a little bit of, I don't want to say recovery. I don't want to say make good either. whatever word is between recovery and make good.
And that was kind of a save, right?
Yeah.
Kind of Cisco saving the day by discovering that.
Yeah, and it was kind of like almost maybe ace in the hole on Mickey's part. Like, I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna set him up to plead the fifth. He's gonna plead the fifth. The judge is gonna strike the testimony, and here's a little extra something to basically solidify what you just saw that you can't deliberate on, but still proves my point.
Right. Yeah.
And the only other thing I had out of the trial was the premature closing argument. And not necessarily the fact that it was premature, but the fact that everyone thought Freeman threw out such this damning closing argument that reset all the progress they had made throughout the trial, and she really did nothing but repeated everything she said out of the opening statements. Like, she brings up one point, it's like, okay, well, Mickey already defeated that, and she brings up something else. She brings up the fact that, like, Lisa had a contentious relationship with Bondurant, and like, well, Mickey already gave you a few different examples of distraction of why that was not plausible, and brought up the thing about the hammer or the plate, the timing, and that's where it's like, well, Mickey already like just dissected this stuff. Like,
right?
Why did you just want to rush this? Did you just go get out of the way? Like, why did you just want to rush this closing argument out? That you just repeat stuff that was already defeated in trial, or at least contended.
It was that the time that, she set her phone timer, the judge said, oh, well, you have 20 minutes. And she's like, I can do it in 10. And she sets her timer.
Mm-hmm.
That was the time.
Yeah. And she always does it on her iPhone so pretentiously, like,
I have to confess, I set timers on my phone for everything just like that, but I'm not, a prosecutor. So just pointing that out. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't think it was like the flex that she thought it was, like, it wasn't that impressive, really.
I know. especially with what she said. I'm like, you're not saying anything. You're not proving your case right now.
Yeah. Just doing a lot of this, but like not saying much.
I got one more question. You got anything else from the trial?
Not for the trial, no. No, I kind of wanted to get into the symbolism and like foreshadowing or little Easter eggs or signs that you saw. I went back and sort of reviewed the episode. I didn't watch them all the way through, but I picked out a few things that I was like, wow, that was definitely foreshadowing or an Easter egg, indicating what was to come.
Yeah. I thought like this segment, I hope we are able to do on a consistent basis, picking things out, because I guess technically we weren't film students, but a lot of people in our background, they do kind of have some of a film background and breaking this stuff down. So like, I hope this is a consistent thing we could do, where like kind of pick things like, oh, did this have any relevance? Did this have any relevance?
Well, we weren't film majors, but we both did video production, did we not? So I mean, that counts for something for me.
So to me, like the big ones that stood out were his father's ring.
Mm-hmm.
That, it kind of at the beginning of, I don't remember, I think it was at the beginning of this season, I don't think it was at the end of season 1, they kind of set up him always having like big shoes to fill with his father.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they introduced his mother into the mix, as as adults now, they kind of revealed that they didn't have the best relationship, and it was always like star and we can't coexist, that sort of thing. So like for him to for that to be in the mix, and then him to wear the ring, like I kind of wish they kind of dialed back a little bit, like maybe in like Legal's thing where Lorna's going over the case with Legal, maybe that was kind of the dial back to, okay, you did your father proud, or you outdid your father, or whatever the case may be. Maybe that was it. But like I kind of thought the ring was important, was a nice symbol, and then the other thing was the postcard, which we'll get into it later at the end of the show.
Yeah.
It's teed up the perspective next season. But I thought the Glory Days postcard was something that you saw, you're like, what's the deal with that?
Mm.
And then you get paid off. You're paid off for it later.
Right. Yeah, sadly. Yeah, I mean the father's ring is kind of interesting, and in the scenes with the mother, because when they're celebrating Mickey's birthday, they're saying, oh, it was Haley's idea, and he doesn't want to do this, but saying, I don't know if someone asks Lorna, oh, well, like, why does he have a problem with celebrating his birthday? And Lorna says, oh, well, his dad was never there, and his mom always made it about her, which, like, every scene she's in, she makes everything about her. So I mean, yeah, so I didn't find her to be a captivating character for that reason, because she's just kind of annoying, narcissist. So but
that's how you really feel.
Yeah, sorry, it didn't hold back. With the father's ring, it's interesting because it's talking about keeping up a legacy, but at the same time, there's a scene with Lorna kind of confronting Mickey, saying, like, are you sure you want to do things this way? And he's like, this is who I am now. And so it's like he's kind of struggling with, like, doing things by the book versus, like, I don't even know what you call his way of lawyering, but he's kind of struggling with how good or bad to be to get what he needs to get done. And at the same time, he's trying to live up to this legacy, so it's a little bit of a conflict.
Yeah. I think that, to dig a little deeper on that, I think that him not necessarily being receptive to other people's, I don't want to say criticism, but I guess, for lack of a better word, criticism.
Yeah, definitely.
It could in fact draw back to his internal shadowing, I guess, of his father, where it's like, like, I gotta do this my way. You can't, don't question me, because I have to, like, I've got this giant in my head that I either need to surpass or fulfill, or whatever the case may be.
Yeah, that could be. Oh yeah. Well, I don't know if we'll leave the postcard in what Andy gives him closer to the end, probably.
That one I just thought was funny, because I thought it sets up a continued relationship between them.
I mean, that's what it seems like. Maybe we'll see her every now and then.
Yeah, like, I could see them, like, one of them wins the case, they just exchange the mug back.
Yes, that's exactly what I could see, that they were going to pass it back and forth depending on who wins each case.
The other things for the film student and all of us are, of course, character development. The shows that best resonate with the viewer, to me, are the ones that you kind of see this growth pattern of characters, and there's a lot to go into. I think the big ones are Izzy, aside from Mickey, obviously. The big ones are Izzy, Lorna, maybe Cisco. Legal, not so much, but he does play a nice little role. What character developments do you like out of the Lincoln Lawyer?
I mean, I think one of the most notable ones, I really enjoyed the scenes, and I had to look up Legal's, what do they call him? Legal Schmiegel or something. I don't know. It rhymes.
The whole show, like, every time they reference him, it's always Legal. Like, is that his name?
Yeah, so the way that I always thought about him is Monica's dad, because it's the same actor who plays Monica's father in Friends.
That's funny.
He's he's aged, because he's 20 years older than he was when he was in Friends. So that's what I kind of like in my mind. I'm like, oh yeah, the guy who plays Monica's dad. Like, I like when they're explaining what they're gonna do to him. Like, I think they're in, like, they're outside the courthouse and they're explaining to him what they're going to do. And then there's a scene where he and Mickey go to dinner together, and Mickey says like, well, I like having dinner with you, and it's so bad. But the one thing I thought was, no, please don't kill that guy, please. Like, keep that relationship. I was like, I hope that doesn't foreshadow that they're gonna kill this guy at the end. Like, because I love his relationship with Mickey as a mentor.
I do too, especially when he's telling him things of the way his father did it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's kind of still a tie that Mickey has to his father. Because Legal and he were so close.
Yeah.
So that's definitely, it doesn't necessarily have to be something that's like super present for the audience, but I like that it's always consistent and he's always there.
Yeah, I liked that, just him popping in, like, it was probably at least once an episode, he'd be kind of consulting with Mickey on something. So I really liked that relationship. I'm not totally sure what the purpose was of, I don't know if it was just like to have a conflict, having Cisco and Lorna kind of fighting about what they wanted to do for the wedding. Like, was that just, when she said, oh, well, this venue said they can't have it there anymore, like, maybe it's just the universe giving us a sign. And then, he confesses that he would really actually want to have a big wedding. And then what they settled on. Like, I kind of felt like it was just to have a conflict, to check the box. Like, I didn't know that there was much value in that, like for as far as furthering their relationship along. I don't know.
I agree in the sense that they probably just did it to make to show the audience that they're not just this perfect couple that spontaneously sparked in the office, and like, oh, everything's perfect now, we're happy, we can't wait to be together, that sort of thing. Like, just to show that there is some kind of that there can be a little bit of rough ground between them.
Yeah, but I mean, that was kind of the whole story of the first half of the second season, was the him not being out of the motorcycle gang, and her being like, why is he behaving this way? Like, why isn't he talking to me? Like, that to me was like the major conflict between them of that second half or the first half of the season. So I don't know, this to me, like, they could have easily just, had her talking about the wedding and then have Cisco just be like, you know what, like, sounds crazy, but I kind of want to have a big wedding. Like, call me a girl. But, like, that would kind of be fun. Like, that could be a funny scene where he's this big gruff guy and he's admitting that he wants all of that corny stuff. Like, I didn't think it had to be drawn out so much. You know what I mean?
Although, to their credit, that distrust or implied distrust or questioning of their trust or whatever however you want to describe what was going on in Lorna's head.
Yeah.
To me, that almost helped fuel the connection between Lorna and Izzy, the friendship between Lorna and Izzy. Because the only reason they were in the office together is because Lorna's piled with work. So Mickey says, "Oh, just borrowed Izzy."
True. And the fact that, Izzy just went through that thing with Ray, so that, like, them both going through chaos and bad things, like, gave them a chance to bond. That's true.
So now that we've run through the show, we don't have to worry about spoiling our spoilers.
Yeah.
To anyone that hasn't watched it, let's talk about some red flags or Easter eggs that popped up. And a lot of they did this with Trevor Elliott too, where it's like, oh, you weren't texting on your phone, you were controlling your drone to get rid of the murder weapon. They did this with him too. All of a sudden Mickey starts to notice, he remembers the phone call with fake Jeff, and he hears the music playing in the background. He's walking on was he with Haley? I think he was with Haley.
Yeah. And Haley's like, Dad? Yeah. And he's like, hold on, I just have to do something. Like,
then he hears that music and he recognizes it. Or in the trial, I think it came out that that Lisa and Jeff weren't divorced, and Cisco sends in this PDF of their divorce paperwork, and then he goes to confront Lisa and he's like, okay, where's Jeff? looks down at the garden, cilantro. He hated cilantro. Like I like I like that there's these red flags that kind of sour what should be a good feeling for Mickey, that he just won a case, and to kind of continue this internal struggle of a defense lawyer, because when you're a defense lawyer, you want to defend your client, but you don't necessarily know if they're if they really are innocent.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like the crazy moment was, I mean, it was the street music, when he was walking around with Haley, but also something that stood out is talking about I don't know if he's the manager or Lisa's employee, Renee. He was like, oh, that guy? He's like, that guy was the health inspector. And it just being like, he posed as the health inspector, the Walter Kim moment. That was kind of crazy too. Like when he was like, hey, just very innocently, that's the health inspector.
And Cisco's driving around and now no one can find Walter Kim.
Right. Yeah.
That was that one. I'm glad you brought that, because I completely forgot about that when he walked in. I was like, oh, he's in a weird place.
Yeah. I mean, I wrote down two like foreshadowing or moments where how it's just people are kind of doing what they do and like they're not hiding. These were two of those moments where Mickey said to Lisa when they were talking about Henry, and she was like, oh, I didn't know Henry was like that, like, wow, oh my God, like, and Mickey goes to her
the whole time.
Yeah, Mickey goes to her, I can see the liars coming from a mile away, and he's standing in front of her, like who she has just lied to him. That was just like, whoa.
Yeah.
And then so then she's done this thing several times to him throughout the second half of the season, where she like, it's like, oh, well, why don't you believe in me? Like she gets on him, and she like, I don't know, she's almost like very manipulative in certain ways, and
almost reinforcing that.
Like, yes. So I think in that same conversation, later in that conversation, after they were talking about Henry, she says, well, it seems like you're doubting me again. Like kind of like saying it in an accusatory way. And like, I hated how she would always just like, sink her claws into him to be like, I think this was also right before they hooked up, and I was like, no. Like having Maggie out of the picture, I don't like that Lisa's in the picture, but yeah, she makes him feel bad for having that natural doubt several times, and that's ironic. It's like, yes, she didn't kill Bondurant, but she definitely killed Jeff.
Yeah. Well, and like the doubt thing, like you're a defense attorney, you're supposed to doubt everything because you have to constantly think of ways the prosecution is going to make the jury doubt you. So yeah, you're right. Like to just like constantly drill that into his head.
Yeah.
Like, look at me, I love you, blah blah blah.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, like you don't think I'm innocent? How could you?
Yeah.
Like, why don't you believe me? Just like that harping on it, like it got annoying. And I think that's why I started to not like her. Because would an innocent person do that? I don't think so.
And interesting way to segue that, because I think that's something both from season 1 and season 2 now, that is kind of not a resolution, but kind of like a full circle. By the end of the episode, Mickey finds out that this case that he just won, this person he defended, is not necessarily so clean. And there's this kind of brass knuckle justice. I think Griggs used the term after Trevor Elliott was shot and killed following his presentation. And that this kind of making this inner conflict for Mickey.
It's like, how is he supposed to defend these people when he's been fooled twice?
Right.
Like, yes, Lisa didn't kill, Bondurant, but she did commit murder. So it's like he didn't even see that.
Well, at least the silver lining to that is, she's not going to fill the void that Maggie left now.
Right. She's going away.
Yeah. But it's just I don't know how they can continue to push that, because I feel like that's going to get predictable after a while.
Right, right.
He keeps defending these people that aren't squeaky clean. But I do kind of like that there is this situation where he kind of figures out after the fact, why'd you pulled the wool over my eyes, and I just got you off this life-changing event.
Yeah, I think he feels betrayed. I mean, this is the second time he's been fooled, and is it going to keep happening? And I just hope, with this new case that they introduce at the end, that it continues in a different direction, which, even by the end of the finale, we saw what direction it was going in with the glory days. Yeah, that whole situation, I'm just no, because you see the postcard and you're like, okay, she's all good, she's safe, she's in Hawaii with her mom, and then again, it's like a rug pulled out from under you moment, like they did with Maggie moving to San Diego. It's just okay, we're gonna give you this great thing, never mind. Whoop.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's that would be my final thought on the season. Is I'm enjoying the way this is going. I'm enjoying watching Mickey's courtroom demeanor despite all these internal conflicts, which obviously have to be there. And I'm not upset by their ties to the show. So to set up the next season with the murder of this integral person in Mickey's previous cases, it really does make me excited for what's to come next in Lincoln Lawyer.
Yeah, same. I am excited to see this story keep going, and I like that they wove in a character we already know to keep it going. It's just the plot thickens.
Yeah. And it's almost like a different way of doing what they did, coming full circle back around to I can't think of his name, the side case he was dealing with Trevor Elliott, the kid that got put away wrongly, and I can't think of his name, but that kind of it obviously carried on a different way because you have previous character that's dead as opposed to one that's getting off, but it kind of brings back that full circle thing where it's this is someone we know, like you said, this is someone we know, and now you're upset because this was a good character, so likable character.
Right. And the fact that he said it was a friend of his, they're saying that why would I kill my friend? I forget, what he calls Glory Days, what he calls her.
It was
name he knew her by.
Name. It was Gloria something. It was, I think his name was still Gloria, but it was a different last name.
Yeah, or maybe it started with a G also, but yeah, so that it's kind of that parallel of this is a person that's being accused of something that they couldn't have done. So who could have done it? If this person didn't do it, then who did? And what's the explanation for it?
Right. Well, we give a lot of explanations. Make sure you follow us along. You've seen them down below the whole show. Instagram and TikTok, we're both on there. Binge the Ginge with dots between the letters. At Nutmeg 2 Palmetto. Give us both follows. Stay tuned to the show on all our platforms: YouTube, Rumble, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. And until the next real review, Red and Red, sign out.
In less than an hour, aircraft from here will join others from around the world. And you will be launching the largest aerial battle in the history of mankind.
Hey guys, you ready to let the dogs out?
What?
Do what?
I'd like to be pimps from Oakland or cowboys from Arizona, but it's not Halloween.
Let the dogs out. You know, like, who let the dogs out? Who brought this guy along?
Slow ahead. I can go slow ahead. Come on down and chump some of this shit.
Grow up, Peter Pan. Count Chocula.
X never, ever marks the spot.
One more thing. Do me a favor. Don't go chasing waterfalls.
You did. You crazy son of a bitch, you did.
Mankind, that word should have new meaning for all of us today. We can't be consumed by our petty differences anymore.
You're gonna need a bigger boat.
No. Try not. Do. Or do not. There is no try.
All right. Well, you do us proud. Because I don't want no scrubs.
Don't act so surprised, Your Highness. You weren't on any mercy mission.
Not from tyranny, oppression, or persecution, but from annihilation. We're fighting for our right to live.
Snakes. Why did it have to be snakes?
I'll take care, all right? None but love for you. None but love for you.
10. X marks the spot.
Have any clue what's about to happen to him?
Oh, not a chance in hell. Good night.
Peace!
Fire, you son of a...
Toodaloo, motherfucker.
Hey, ain't too proud to beg.
Come on.
What?
It's not funny anymore.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm not trying to be
references.
Still, nothing. I swear to you.
But as the day when the world declared in one voice, we will not go quietly into the night, we will not vanish without a fight, we're going to live on. We're going to survive. Today, we celebrate our Independence Day.